You're listening to In Sickness, a podcast about caregiving with Allison Breininger and Justin Bima.
Good morning, friend.
Good morning.
How are you this fine morning?
Doing okay. The sun is shining. We've had a remarkably dry spring, which may have its problems down the road, but has been pretty great for the past few weeks, especially with like having to take Mosey out and walk her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was always dreading like when it's going to be like rainy season and
which isn't rainy season like always for you in Washington State?
That's why this has been so exciting. But yeah, so Sarah and I are both like past the fully vaccinated date for both of us. And so over the weekend, we were able to go and bring dinner to my parents and like sit down around a table, like without masks and just like be like things used to be. And it was after like not really seeing them for the past, I don't know, what has it been, 15 months or something?
Right.
That was just really incredible. And so we did that. We're working on setting up some stuff to go see the rest of our family so we can see all the nieces and nephew and like really, really excited about that.
Yeah.
That's what I've missed.
And because for you, like you live geographically really close to all those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just have you seen them like through doors or across a yard or that kind of thing, or just not at all?
No, I have, because I've dropped stuff off periodically. And so, yeah, I've seen them at the doorways and stuff, but like, not the hugs and like all of that. So
what was that like to be with your parents around a table?
It was both like felt, this is just a very normal thing, and felt like, wow, this is really surreal that after all that we've been through, like this is happening now.
Yes.
And so there's that both like sliding back into familiar. This is a very familiar setting, and like a little bit of that, like I've been trained for the past year to think that this is a not safe situation.
Yes.
But like I have to trust that, these shots that I got, like the studies show that I can trust that, and that we're all okay. And so yeah.
So that's a really good description, because we've started to do some of those things too. And it's true. It's like in some ways it's like, oh yeah, of course I'm doing this. This is what we've done a million times. But in other ways, like you said, like we have sort of learned in the last 14 months that like certain things are dangerous. And I think it's going to take our brains and our bodies a while to undo that piece of like, wait, someone's hugging me or someone's close to me, or like you don't have a mask on, and like to undo that training that we've had for the last 14 months.
Yeah. I think of that particularly around the like vaccinated people don't have to wear masks anymore.
Right.
Like that's a real, it doesn't feel, for me, like walking into a grocery store without a mask, like I don't know if like I'm at a point where that still feels comfortable yet.
Right.
Which is like, I recognize that scientifically that's okay, but like it's just that ingrained like experience that's like maybe not yet. So I'm expecting more of that, like just I guess internal conflict around like what's okay, and like I don't have to, something can be okay, and if I don't feel like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with me, continuing to answer the door wearing a mask.
Right.
If that's what feels okay right now.
Yeah. A neighbor of mine, after the CDC just recently made that announcement about the mask, said, well, I guess it's my emotional support mask now. Yeah. And she just said, I just feel better. I just feel better wearing it. And even if the science says like it's not needed anymore, I just feel better. And I just feel like, why not?
For sure.
I mean, it's not painful. It's not hard. It's just, yeah, I think the term I keep thinking about is like cognitive dissonance. Yeah. Right. It's like in your brain is just like, wait, what? Is this okay? Is this not okay? And, there have been all these fancy charts that we've been trying to follow. And I think even now I worry that folks who are not vaccinated will just be like, sweet, no masks are required. And they will not wear a mask. And that makes me a little bit nervous as I try to figure out. Because the funny thing is, like when you talk about going to the grocery store, like I've hardly been in the grocery store at all, like mask or no, right? Like we've just found ways to just be at home. And so part of it is the like being in a grocery store without a mask. But part of it for me, I think is going to be just like being in a grocery store.
Oh yeah. For me as well. I mean, we've had stuff delivered or pick up curbside, like, which I mean, that's a thing that has been incredibly convenient, and to some extent, some of that stuff may keep continuing just because it
for sure
can make life a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, I'm for sure going to continue. I mean, we were actually doing the grocery delivery thing before COVID anyway.
Yeah.
Just because, we've talked about this so many times as caregivers, like if you can offload some of your daily tasks, do it.
Yep.
And so, especially now, I'm lucky I have a 14-year-old who's pretty responsible. So throughout the week, all three of us just like keep adding things to the app, to the grocery list. And then we all just sort of do an all call, everybody ready, and then we hit the button and then it comes.
Yeah.
So I can't see myself going back to like that kind of thing. But I think just the casual nature of like, oh, I forgot something, I'm going to run to the store. Like that has not been part of my reality. And so I think also the human part of just like being in the world, being around people, mask or not, is going to be a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah. So I guess how's your week been then with all of this going on in your head or around us?
Well, two huge things have happened here since we last talked.
Okay.
In this area. One is that Sean and I were both tested for antibodies. So you and I have talked a million times about how we're not sure that he was going to build antibodies because he has not in the past. And so I hadn't even like sort of let myself play the game of like, what if he does? What if he doesn't?
Yeah.
Because either path was complicated, right? And so we both got tested, which is a simple blood test, and found out that he does have antibodies.
That's incredible.
I think I still don't even believe it.
Yeah.
It took them a couple of days for the results to come back, and it was a really hard couple of days. Like it felt very much like the scanxiety that I have when we're waiting for like cancer results, because it's like this was going to change the trajectory. And whereas like when you get a cancer scan back, it's like either it's not clear and then you go down a path, or it is clear and then your life stays the same.
Right.
For us, it's sort of like if he was going to have antibodies, like that's a whole new thing. If he wasn't going to have antibodies, but the world was going to open up, that's a whole new thing. Like either way, it was going to be a whole new path. So those couple of days of waiting was really hard. And then it was funny because we got the My Chart alert at the same time. Both of us did.
Okay.
And so I opened his first and it said positive for antibodies. And I just I was like, I think I probably opened mine. Like I couldn't even believe that it was true. And I was like, but wait, like there's your little picture. I think this is your, and then I went out and like went into mine, and mine also said positive, but had like slightly different numbers. So I was like, I think they're both positive. Like, is this even?
That's just amazing.
Because, he, like, we always joke that he's like the rare, right? And so if someone's like, well, there's like a 1% chance, we're like, oh, cool. Will you tell us about that? Because that's going to happen to us. And so in this case, actually, he's rare in a good way.
Yeah.
Because what they're finding is that I saw the statistic that only 17% of people with solid organ transplants are building antibodies.
Oh, wow.
And even though his was a bone marrow transplant, it's the same concept, right? And so for once, he's like in the rare group.
Yeah.
Which never happens. I mean, he, it always happens, but he's in the rare good group.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it just, I don't know. It's like a cascade of emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, I kept writing back and forth to his infectious diseases doctor to be like, so wait, does this mean that he can just like function as like any other fully vaccinated person? And she's like, yep.
Wow.
And I know it still like boggles my mind because we have been in such a different category than the rest of the world for this whole thing. Like such a high risk category of like, if he gets it, we're doomed. Like there's all these studies and things that say that like, it's going to be so much worse for him than for the rest of us. And so to now be like lumped in with the general society is like, whoa, like we're on a chart now.
Yeah.
Like we've never been on the charts before.
Right.
You know what I mean?
When going through this past year, like has this outcome ever been like what you've considered as being the outcome?
I don't think I ever let myself consider it.
Yeah.
I mean, because even for like you and me, it feels like mind boggling.
Oh, for
that
sure.
After only 14 months, like here we are.
Right. Yeah. Right? I remember at the start of this, like, I mean, the start of this, that everything just who knew how it was going to go. But like once it was like, okay, we're starting to research vaccines and stuff like that, like to have it happen this fast, like that was never.
No. So that in itself, even for you and me, like that feels crazy. But I think I just never let myself even imagine that he would be part of it. I mean, we were we were just like, he said at one point, do you think I'm just going to wear my mask the rest of my life?
Right.
Do you think, which actually is not a terrible idea. Like a lot of people have said they haven't gotten all the other bugs,
Yeah.
But I was starting to think like, man, this world is going to open up and we are going to just be stuck in this house,
Yeah.
So I hadn't even let myself picture it or imagine it. And now that it's here, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And so I think, first of all, it's like this unbelievable moment of like just disbelief that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt this moment of like, I did it.
Yeah.
Like I kept him alive through a global pandemic.
Yeah.
Like this moment of like wanting to celebrate myself, if I may say so.
Yeah.
Since we're in this caregiver space. Of like, I did all the things, and just sort of thinking back to like the days of like when we like wiped down the groceries with the Clorox wipes because we didn't know yet, right? And all the different things that we've had to do and decisions we've had to make and not do, and
like close calls that you've gotten through.
Yes, and times of dropping him off at the hospital, and and so that was part of the reaction too. Was like, wow, I did it.
Yeah,
because what they've said like is that. Sometimes people still might get it after they've gotten the vaccine, but very rarely are they hospitalized or do they die.
Right.
So certainly he still might get it, but just to know that like, even if he gets it, that like the outcome is not going to be as dire as it likely would have been.
Right.
Just feels, I don't even know the word.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling pretty proud of myself over here.
Yeah, you should.
Do you in your house? I mean, I know Sarah's situation is really different. And so she wasn't quite as much of a high risk in the same way. But do you have a sense of that as well? Or is it different because hers isn't as much of an immune piece?
I mean, I don't think it's as like acute as your feeling of like I got us through this. But that's certainly there for sure. And I don't know. I think maybe it's less of like from a medical standpoint and more of a like, we had to make adjustments and, sacrifice things, seeing family, seeing friends. And so just to get to the end and like, okay, we've made it through this. And like, it was worth all of that, I guess, to get to this point.
Yeah. Do you feel like, you said this one day, do you feel like you're coming out of this like a battered version? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
How are you emerging?
Reluctantly, maybe. I mean, I'm already like a introverted person, and so it's not, my reaction isn't to just like surround myself with like all of the like activity and people and everything. But I think certainly staying isolated at home for this long has reinforced those tendencies and, certainly atrophies some of the like social stamina or something.
Yeah.
So there's that piece. And I'm more of a like, okay, things are opening up. Let's just kind of take this slowly and ease back into it.
Right.
And kind of the dynamic that we're having here is, so Sarah, as this pandemic was going on earlier, like she was not doing well. And, up till she got this new medication like 3 months ago, like she was, it felt like she was on her way to being like in bed all the time again.
Yeah.
And so suddenly she is doing better. I mean, not like better, but doing well. And so she's kind of coming at it from there's two different things. There's one, like she has the energy now to go do stuff. And like she hasn't been able to see people either, much, less than me because she hasn't been able to like go along with me to drop stuff off and things like that. So she's had, significantly less contact than like my limited contact.
Yeah.
And so like she's ready to like do things. And so like this week she wanted to just like, hey, I just want to go to the bookstore in town and just like browse.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I certainly wouldn't have chosen that as a thing to do.
Right.
But it's that dynamic. I don't know. I was happy to do it. And it wasn't like I felt like this is a dangerous thing we're doing. It felt fine.
Right.
But I guess I'm not eager to like fill up my calendar or like fill up the days with things.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back, and maybe this is something we can talk about more on a future episode, is like there's that dynamic of, she is the sick one and I'm the healthy one. and she has so many limitations that I don't want to be an additional limitation. And so if she wants to do something or feels like she has the energy for something, like, who am I to like, should we really do that? Or like, I don't feel up for that.
Yep.
And that's a complicated like dynamic that I imagine you experience that to some degree as well. So that's,
we should dig into that another day.
That's a whole thing.
Right. Can she drive or no?
No, she hasn't driven in, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. I don't know, maybe longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like if she wants to go somewhere, like you are the ride, you are the ticket to get there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I wondered because, since she and I have become friends as well, she left me a message one day and said, I'm so excited because I want to go to the bookstore and the paint store and TJ Maxx, and listed all these places. And immediately I thought, I wonder how Justin feels about going to all the stores.
Yeah.
Just because I know, like you've said, you're introverted. We both have talked about anxiety. All of that is like pre-pandemic. But like you said, I love how you said something about your social battery, your social stamina. Maya has been talking about that as well because she is introverted and has been talking about her social battery.
Yeah.
And that it runs out a lot faster.
Well, and it's like, it's like, I don't know, batteries get old and they just don't charge up as much or something.
Yeah,
so it's like we've been like in this state where like, it just doesn't take much to wear that down anymore.
Exactly. So whereas before she would want to spend like a whole day with a friend. Now after a couple of hours, she's like, whoa, I got to go. You know what I mean? And so I think for some of us, that's building that back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you did go to the bookstore, and how did that feel?
I mean, it was pretty much empty, and it felt good to be doing a real world thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And so like after this pandemic, doing a real world thing like that. And also when we have the opportunities to like do things that like are quote unquote things that like a normal couple can do, like those can be really like meaningful, special things. And so there was some of that as well too, that it's just like, this is a normal thing that we're able to do right now.
I hadn't thought about it that way, that for you both, like the things you could do last February, 2 Februarys ago, are very different than you can now. So it's sort of like this double emergence.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. Well, originally when I meant when you're going to come, are you coming out of this battered?
Yeah.
My question was more about like, how excited are you to come out? Not so much that, but like how do you feel like this has impacted you? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like the last 14 months have like battered you? Are you coming out of this like a different version of yourself? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what has it done to you these last 14 months?
I feel very burned out from these last 14 months or 15 or whatever it's been. Yeah. I feel exhausted. I feel tired. I feel like all of my batteries are just unempty. It's been, because it's been like a marathon, and I'm exhausted and I think that's part of that also, with that dynamic of like Sarah wanting to do more things and kind of get out there a little bit more than I do, is I feel like I just need rest to some extent, and that pairing that with doing more things. I mean, that's not how to find that balance is we'll see, I guess, how that goes. But I don't feel recharged and like ready to get out there, I guess.
I saw a thing the other day. I think it was actually, she's amazing for anyone out there who is raising girls, especially. Her name is Lisa Damore. And her book Untangled is so good about raising girls. But anyway, I think it was her that said recently, at the end of a marathon, what do people do? They rest. You don't like finish a marathon and then go have a party. Like you rest because you're tired. And so I think it's an interesting thing that I could see some people being like, whoa, what have you been doing the last 14 months? Haven't you been resting when you've just been stuck there in your house? But we've been like, the emotional toll that I think that it's taken.
Yeah. Having your anxiety like ramped up that high for that long, like that is a lot.
A lot. So I think it feels interesting to be like, I just want to rest inside my house that I've been locked in for 14 months.
Right. But it's a different when like you're choosing to do it.
Yes. I have to say that it's funny that like, especially partly because things are looking on the up and up, and partly because it's spring. Like there for a while, I kind of loved that. I was like, no one's going to come to our door. No, I can just like put my pajamas on at like 5:30 p.m. No one's coming to this door. Nobody's going to be like, hey, you want to go for, do you want to do this? Do you want to like, and now I'm like, oh man.
Right.
I have to wear real clothes and people might come over and like I have to clean this house, I guess, maybe because people might walk inside of it. That's weird. I don't know how I feel about that. But it's funny. I feel like at one point in the beginning, everyone was like, I'm going to take this time to organize my house. And, everybody was like giving everything to the Goodwill. And I remember I went through a stage where I like Marie Kondo. Do you know that reference? Yeah. Marie Kondo'd all my drawers. And I was like, this is amazing. I mean, my gosh, like that was so many months ago. Like now it's a hot mess right over again, because I remember somebody saying, we're all going to come out of this with such like organized, beautiful houses. And I was like,
maybe some people can, but that's not me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. A friend of mine the other day who knows that I'm an Enneagram 3 and therefore an anxious Enneagram 3.
Okay.
Which means I clean and organize to make myself feel better. She's like, isn't your house so clean because of all that? And I said, yeah, except that I live with 2 cats, a dog, an Enneagram 9, which is a peacemaker.
Okay.
And a teenager. So no, it's not clean in here. My nervous energy of cleaning doesn't counteract all the other that. 5 beings with whom I cohabitate. What do you think that will look like for you to find rest, to recover, to recuperate? Like, what are some things you think you might do or need coming out of this?
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure. It's not something that I think I've let myself kind of think about, or not that I've not let myself. I just haven't had the like mental energy to like think through that, I guess. Yeah. So we'll see, I guess. Yeah. I think one thing maybe is like now that there are more things that are possible to go do, like finding some things that generally would be exciting for me rather than like maybe not social things or feeling things that maybe feel a little more obligatory or something, but like what's something that would really be exciting and fulfilling for me to go do, and whether that's grab a beer with someone or go on a hike somewhere or whatever that is.
Right.
Lean into some of that stuff a little bit to kind of try to, as much as I can, get time for that to kind of have some restorative activities there.
Gosh, I wish I lived there. When you're like, grab a beer with someone, I kind of want to be like, hey, I'll go for a beer.
Right. Yeah.
Someday we'll meet in person and we can have a beer together.
A non-pandemic drink. Yeah.
Oh man, that'll be nice. That's I wonder about that, about like sort of the priorities that we'll have coming out of this. Right. When I think about sometimes when we play the game during the pandemic of like, what do you miss the most? Or like if the pandemic went away tomorrow, like what would you do? And one thing for me for sure was like hug my mom.
Yeah.
Because I got to see my mom a lot and we talk like on video all the time, or we'll talk through the front door or in the yard or whatever. But we've had a lot of hard times in the last 14 months and to not be able to like get a hug from her was really hard. And so last weekend was Mother's Day and they were like, do you want to come inside the house? And we were just fresh off this antibody news. Okay. And so we were like, oh yes? ? I mean, it was hard to sort of still decide, but we did, which was amazing. And like you said, being with your parents, it was both like, we've sat around this table a million times and also like, wow, wow, here we are, But then at the end, I was like, would you like a hug? And because she's very respectful of like letting me sort of take the lead as things reopen. And so then we had this like glorious hug of like 14 months in the making, that was just like the things that you take for granted before. Here in Minnesota, people hug a lot, like, hi, here's a hug, goodbye, here's a hug, and so realizing that that's a huge deal. So that was like the first thing. And the other thing I've always said is like the little people in my life. So my best friend has 4-year-old twins, and then my little niece Maggie is 2, and they all live close by.
Yeah.
But like seeing them, but not being able to like touch them has been so hard. And with my best friend's twins, like we would do things like we would stand in the yard and they would open up the screen window and we would talk through the screen. And so yesterday I got to go see them And at first we were going to be in the yard, but then it was raining. And she's like, well, I think you can come in. And I was like, I think I can. Right.
Yeah.
But we had this like beautiful moment where Hannah Allison is her name actually. And she like sort of started to walk towards me. And then she went back to my friend and whispered, does Allie have her shots yet? And she said, yes. And she said, so can I hug her? She said, yes.
Oh.
And then and it was so amazing.
Oh my goodness.
It was so amazing. And especially because it wasn't like somebody being like, go. Because I was like, we saw each other a lot, but it was not forced. It was like, she was the one that was like, I really want to hug this auntie of mine,
Mm-hmm.
And so then a million times as I was there yesterday, she would just be like, I'm going to hug you now, which was just like amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And so sort of like you said, like felt at the same time, like so normal and also like, wow, this is amazing. And also a little bit like, oh, am I crazy? Should I be doing this? Therefore, they don't have a shot yet.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dumb idea, but it's a great idea. But I don't know anymore,
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've been kind of thinking about, and I haven't figured it all out, is like, how is like life as a caregiver going to be different coming out of this? Because I've been thinking, we've been doing most of Sarah's appointments telemedicine.
Yeah.
And so like, is that going to continue to be a thing? And I imagine we'll want to use that where we can.
Yeah.
But also things like we haven't had to make decisions about like what social obligations we can or can't attend, or, having to make all of those additional decisions. That's been kind of stripped down to some extent. There's been certainly other things to be incredibly anxious and stressed about.
There was no shortage of that.
No, but also like the ways that people could help has been limited as well.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
So that's what, I don't know, is that something that you've given any thought to, or like how is this going to change anything, or is it just going to go back to what it was pre-pandemic, or did things not change that much for you and it's kind of going to be the same? Just keep moving on.
That's a really good question. Well, already today, there's a thing where I'm going to need to have the car one place and Maya needs to go to another place. And so I was able to ask my mom to give her a ride.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like that. Like, and when I told Maya, I was like, Grandma's going to drive you. She's like, whoa. Like, because my parents used to drive her to school every day, like all the time. But have not been in a car with her.
Right.
For 14 months. And so to be able, like that little thing feels huge. Or like the other day, my mom picked up some groceries and I was in meetings and Sean was taking a nap or whatever. And she's like, well, can I just let myself in and put them in the fridge? Can I be in your house now? And I was like, yes. Right. So that kind of thing. So I think that things like that are going to be helpful. Like things that I have not asked for or been able to ask for help with will change. Like we'll be able to go back to before, where I feel like my sort of team of support is going to be bigger again. I've actually really loved having the telemedicine. Like I would say 90% of the appointments he's had in the last 14 months have been online or on the phone. And so I'm going to push to continue that. I mean, I also like now that I have this job where I'm, like a salaried person.
Right.
Which in that transition happened during this pandemic. Right. And so it's way easier for me to just like step out of my home office, sit on the couch with him, do a 20-minute appointment, step back into my home office than like going to the clinic and the parking ramp and the valet and you know what I mean? All the things. So I would hope, and I guess that they would, that we could continue to do those things. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know about other things. Like those have been the biggest pieces. I think also I don't know where the hospital is right now. That's the other thing I always think about is like that fear of like, if he needed to go to the ER today, could I go with him?
Right.
And I don't know what the status is of that right now. But that was the other thing that was always in the back of my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. A big thing is, I'm sure we talked about this. It feels like in addition to being a caregiving podcast, this has certainly been a pandemic podcast, just because it's been
that's true.
The overhanging thing unexpectedly.
Right.
But working from home initially was like a real difficult thing for me.
Yeah.
Not having that like clear delineation and that clear break where I was like, okay, now I'm not doing caregiving, I'm like working, and to kind of have those realms separate. But as the months have gone on, like I've come to really enjoy it and figured out how to work well from home and kind of balance those things to the point where I think it's working really well. And so my employer has said that when we do go back to the office, which they've said it's still several months out. I don't know if that's going to change now, but they will be offering some like hybrid model of combination of working from home and working from the office. And like, at the beginning of the pandemic, I don't know that that's something that I would have been like, yes, that's something I want to take advantage of. But now it's like, absolutely, that's something I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's a big change.
Yeah.
And like that, like you've said, for some appointments for Sarah and things like that, with it being like a telemedicine thing, so easy to just like go do that for 30 minutes rather than, drive 30 minutes home from work. Take Sarah to wherever we need to go and like have it be a whole thing.
Yeah. I hope that that employers are seeing this, right? I hope that, and I've heard a lot of people in the chronic illness community be like, oh, interesting. So all these years when you've said like people can't work from home, now we can. Huh.
Right.
And so I would hope that caregivers, if you're listening, take advantage of this moment. Right. If it is supportive of you to be working at home, take advantage of this moment to say, I've proven over the last 14 months that I can still do this.
Yeah.
I still show up. I'm productive. In some ways, I might be more productive because I don't have to leave.
Yeah.
I probably miss less work. So caregivers, I would say like, fight for it right now. In this is the moment to stick up for that. When I made the switch from independent contractor to staff person, that was one of my bargaining points was that I said, I always want to work from home.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see when the rest of my coworkers do go back into the office. I mean, certainly there might be times that I go in if need be, but I think something that will save me as well is that now we're in a bunch of different states. So I feel like there will always be someone on the computer.
Right.
It won't just be me sitting at home. I think something that will get easier is that this was the second good news that I forgot to mention. I got so excited about the antibody good news that I didn't tell you the second good news is that Maya got her shot yesterday.
Oh, that's right.
Because she is 14.
Yes.
And so we were very closely following that. Actually, you were the one that sent me the FDA announcement.
Oh, is that I was the first person to send you that?
You were.
Oh,
yes.
that's fun.
It was fun. And so we've been following that story so closely. And she got her first shot yesterday. And so that means like 5 weeks from now, she'll be fully vaccinated. So between that and Sean's antibodies, I was like, Maya, I don't see any reason that you can't go to like in-person high school next year, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because before I'd been like, okay, well, probably can, but I don't know. And let's still sign you up for online just in case. But now, I mean, I don't, I hope that I'm not proven wrong here, but feels like she'll be able to do that, right?
For sure.
So I think that will be a huge piece, right? Because I've been working from home, caregiving, but also then like parenting and helping her with online school.
Right.
And she's pretty low maintenance, but still like it's a lot. Like I keep track of every class she has every day. And I'm always like, it's 11 o'clock. Are you in class? So sort of having her like send her off for the day will be in some ways easier.
For sure.
Although I have not missed the like, can you drive me to this person's house? Can you drive me to that person's house? Like that, I have not missed the chauffeuring of that. But it'll be worth it to, let her make up for all that lost time of all the friends. So that'll be huge.
That's great news.
Yeah. And we're even thinking about like taking a trip this summer.
Ooh.
To see both of our parents are having their 50th anniversaries this summer. And so trip to see family. Yeah. And we don't feel good about flying yet.
Right.
So I think even if science says it's okay, I think I would probably get on that airplane and be like, let me out of here.
Right.
Maybe not. But so anyway, we're going to drive, but that feels pretty, I don't know.
Yeah. Something that even months ago didn't seem like a possibility.
Right. I was like, don't make me think about summer.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I guess I can think about summer and leaving the house, leaving the state.
Yeah. Wild times.
It is. It is. Are there things that you hope, we've sort of talked, especially at the beginning, I think we sort of have gone through these like cycles of like in the beginning, it was like people understood caregivers and people with chronic illness better because they were all kind of in the same boat and people were suddenly thinking about germs and understanding what it meant to be at home and that kind of thing. And then people kind of forgot about us quickly, right? Are there things that you hope that people remember?
Yeah.
things that you feel like they've understood about your life or Sarah's life during this time that you hope that they remember as we emerge from this?
I mean, I think a big thing is just that I think would be easy to get lost for people is just remembering that as things like open up, like that's not a possibility for everyone. Like there are people who are,
Yep.
you know, whether it's they're immunocompromised or they're, you know, disabled and can't leave the house, like their life, which didn't really change a whole lot due to the pandemic, other than, you know, an additional risk. Like they're still going to be at home. And so to just not forget and just in the excitement of resuming, you know, what your life was, to, you know, those people in your life, to remember them. And, you know, now that you've had a, I don't want to say comparable, but an experience that allows you to understand, at least on a more level of what, you know, their lives are like, that you can kind of maintain a level of like understanding and just remembering, you know, all of those people that I think easily just get forgotten about in our society. So I think that's a big one. And I think the other, and the one that we've talked about, I mean, and it's kind of the same, is just that we talked about how, you know, when this happened, there wasn't a big change for us in a lot of things. I mean, and so people were sharing experiences that we've had to deal with for a long time.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, also then for caregivers, that you would think about those people and, you know, you can relate on some level to some of their experiences now better than you could before.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you've built up your schema file a little bit better.
Hey,
there we go.
Nice. Nice recall. That was good.
You're welcome. Yeah, that they, I don't know, just remember people.
Yeah.
And like where accommodations have been made for the population at large, where they should have, those accommodations should have been available to a lot of people long before this.
A long time ago.
To, if you are in a position that you can keep those accommodations available, to do so.
Right. Yeah, it makes me think about early on, you talked about game night and how like people in your family or friends or somewhere were doing like an online game night, and you're like, hello, we've been stuck at home for a long time.
Right.
And I worry a little bit about thinking about that people are going to be like, I never want to get on a Zoom call ever again.
Right. Yep.
Right. And so how can you remember, like you said, remember people, remember that some people are still going to need that Zoom call. I think it's such a slippery slope because I want people to remember this, and I don't want them to be like, oh, well, I totally get what your life is like because of COVID.
Right.
I lived through that. Right. I think that this experience has been different for different people.
Yes.
Certainly. And more terrifying for some of us than others for, you know, scientific reasons. So I want them to remember that and remember that as they emerge, but also to not be like, oh, well, I know what that feels like because I was in my house too. And it's like, well, being in your house because it wasn't safe to be around people, and being in your house because you're too sick and tired to be in the world, that's different.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about is just thinking about how we all are going to reemerge at different paces and with different comfort levels.
Yeah.
And so just to sort of have a little PSA to people to be patient, right? No, you know, fortunately we have amazing people in our lives who are very accommodating in that way to us. But I think just, you know, like just because the CDC says like you don't have to wear a mask inside, like give grace to people that you see like continuing to wear a mask or not wanting to go to that party. Or I think that as we emerge, to sort of check in with people constantly about like what's your comfort level around that, or if you don't feel comfortable with that yet, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and not to assume that the speed at which we're feeling comfortable is the same as others, but to sort of like bend to the most cautious person in the group.
Yeah.
And let them lead the way. And not to make them feel guilt or stress or anything.
For sure.
Around feeling like I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
Or I don't feel comfortable with that yet, you know?
Yeah, I think another thing to remember too is that like here in the US, like we are kind of moving towards that like emerging situation, but like there are certainly places around the world where they are far from that. And so like whether, the people in your life spread across the globe or,
yes,
I don't know. I hope people don't just forget that like this is still a real
for sure
thing in a lot of places.
For sure. I also just want to make a plug because I know you said, to think about the people who either can't get the vaccine, or I think about like, we really thought we were going to be in a situation where even though Sean had gotten it, he wasn't going to have the antibodies, right? And then it would have been really, really important to us about how the people around us were acting or if they were getting vaccinated. Like we were going to count on that and on herd immunity if he was not able to build. And there's lots of people, who that's the case for.
Yeah.
And so just to tell a quick story about a person super close to us in our life who was on the fence about getting the vaccine, but then on her own came to the realization that she said, wait, I realized if I don't get it, like I'm not going to be able to be around you guys. And like you guys won't feel as safe if I don't get it. And so she said, once I realized that, I thought it's a no-brainer. Of course I'm going to go get it. And that was just a gift to us that I didn't have to say, well, but we would feel better. I didn't have to do any of that. She came to that realization on her own, and that she sort of tipped once to the other side of the fence because she thought about us and because she realized that even if she wasn't sure about it for herself, that like doing this was a gift to us to make us feel safer and make us be safer.
Yeah.
And so if any of you are listening and are sort of on the fence yourselves about it, I would just think about that. Even if you think, well, I'm fine or I'm healthy or I'm whatever, there's a lot of people that are out there who need you to get it in order for them to be able to someday reemerge in a safe way.
Yeah. I mean, that's an example of a real tangible thing that someone did to support you and your family as you're a caregiver.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think the fact that I didn't have to, again, like sort of fight for it, right? I feel like I'm always having to like advocate and stand up and, well, what about this? And the fact that like I didn't have to say a word, she came to that on her own also was like huge.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, it's I don't even know the words to use anymore, but it feels like we're in a better place than we have been before. Yes. How about that?
Right.
And I will say that these conversations, it's true, I hadn't thought about it that way, that this has been a pandemic podcast as well. And that these conversations have really helped me to sort of like get through and process all that has happened. And so, I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been
for this space.
Certainly been helpful to be able to talk through all of this, these wild, wild times. And the whiplash now of suddenly like different things are possible now that, suddenly.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, good. And who knows? I mean, I feel like things are changing so quickly that in 2 weeks when we talk, who knows?
Yeah.
What will be happening by then? But at this moment, it feels pretty good.
It does.
So, yeah. Yeah. All right, my friend. Really, really good to talk to you.
Great as always.
I love that we had good news.
Yeah.
To share today, and let's hope that by the next time we come together, there will be more good news to share.
For sure.
Also, just want to say quick, a couple of you listeners have lately been just sharing the impact that this podcast has had on you, and we are just we're grateful that you're here. We're grateful you're listening. It means a lot that you share that because we just sort of put it out there and we don't know, if anybody's listening or if it's supportive of you. And so just wanted to say thanks for listening and that we're glad that it's helping. Feel free to share with anybody else in your life that you feel like would be supported by this. Or if you feel like you don't have the words and the energy to sort of explain what it's like to be a caregiver to somebody else.
Yeah.
You can have us do the work for you. Just send the podcast to someone else and help us paint the picture for them. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Have a good day, friend. We'll see you later.
Okay. We'll see you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to In Sickness. Find us online at insickness.care or on Instagram at insicknesspodcast. You can send your questions and comments to insicknesspodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or fellow caregiver, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening, and take care.